Welcome to the Tabletop Call-In Show Talk Show, where I, Adam Bell, and Jeremy Gage, I guess if I'm doing I, Adam Bell, where I, Adam Bell, and he, is it I and him? No. Where he, Jeremy Gage,
I and he.
and I, Adam Bell, because you got to put yourself second, because that's how English works. Welcome to the Tabletop Call-In Show, where he, Jeremy Gage, and I, Adam Bell, talk about tabletop indie role-playing games, either ones that we've played, read, or made, or are making. It's going to be a good time. This week, you see the big thing down there where it says talk show? That means that it's just Jeremy and I blathering to each other with no audiences calling in, despite the fact that it still says the Tabletop Call-In Show up there, and that's fine. But next week you can call in if that's what you're looking for. Yeah, I'm Adam Bell. Like I said, you can find me on Twitter at AdamEBell. You can get my games at adamebell.itch.io, aka adamebell.games. They're all on sale right now, so go and get them. They're all, I think I put it at 35% off, or you can get all of my currently paid games for $25. And that's a steal. If you ask me, it's a steal. Jeremy, give me a pitch.
What's up? All right, let's start the show.
All right, you did it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Gage. You can find me at JeremyGage5 over on Twitter. You can also listen to the Dry Your Dice podcast and also at Dry Your Dice Pod over on Twitter. Podcast is wherever podcasts are sold. Mm-hmm. And Crazy Eddie's Podcast Emporium.
God.
Currently working on my Final Fantasy Heartbreaker. I have no sales because I have no games. But, hey, that could change very soon.
It could.
Yahtzee.
It's exciting.
There's a lot of Easter eggs in that sentence.
What is going on this week? Why don't we start with what I said that we should talk about, which then I said I was going to get up on my screen so I could easily post links, and then didn't do that. Which is, there were floods and big rain and stuff in like the Philippines and Malaysia in particular this weekend. What fucking day is it?
Monday.
Recently. So a lot of people's houses got flooded and other bad stuff, and some very cool designers are doing things that will help with that. So first is there's a bundle. Like I said, I wanted to have this prepped, but I don't. Let me do this. I'm just going to show it on my screen real quick so that you know what I'm talking about. Bam.
Yeah.
Boom. Bop. Screen sharing. No. Don't look at that. I thought I got my screens mixed up. Okay. Bam, boom.
We're doing it live.
Screen sharing. There we go. The Malaysia Flood Relief 2021 bundle hosted by Aaron Lim, friend of the show. A lot of good games in here, which doesn't matter because you should back it anyway. Because, yeah, at $15 and above, you can get all these cool things. At $45 and above, you can get even more cool things. I haven't read all of these, but the ones that I know about are great. And also, again, it doesn't matter. These could be blank PDFs. It's important to help out because, you know, things are bad. The other thing is Momentos is doing a thing where I believe you get a postcard in the mail if you donate to this. And then proceeds are going to be going to both the Philippines and to Malaysia disaster relief. So check those out. It's important. Yeah, back to the main show looks.
We did it.
We did it.
Support your fellow human all around the world. Not just the ones that you get books and stuff from.
Exactly,
but,
yeah.
You know.
But it's an easy way. It's an easy, like, if you know, we're going to donate anyway, you know, you could get some books.
Yeah.
And that's great. Thank you to all the creators involved for, you know, putting your stuff out there. I know that has a potential to take away sales or whatever, but yeah, it's important to help out.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to get into it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if 3 million people donate $1, that's $3 million. That'd be sick. So that means there's 2 steps. One, we have to get this show to 3 million viewers.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah, and then we can use it like a laser to point money at things.
God, I would love that.
Uh-huh.
Money laser. Sounds
Yeah,
like
imagine
some rich villain's power.
Imagine being fucking rich and not doing that all the time. Fuck off.
Yeah, truly, Bezos. I'm looking at you. I'm calling your ass out. Go ahead. Send Amazon this way and cancel this show. We will rise again.
Shoot yourself into the sun, Bezos.
Yeah, with your goddamn rocket ship.
Yeah.
What are you, a backyard again?
It's a fancy plane. He doesn't even have a rocket.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't. You want to talk about some games?
Yeah. Adam, what have you played in these last 2 weeks?
Well, 2 weeks. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I played Court of Blades twice. Once as Court of Blades and once as a playtest for the tabletop story. Nope. What do I call it? For the tactical storytelling engine. I'm moving out teabag. Great. Don't want to oversteep. It is oversteeped already. Don't want to continue to oversteep. Yeah, I played Court of Blades. First as a one-shot just to get a feel for the system. I like it a lot. It might be my new go-to Forged in the Dark game because I like Royal Court stuff. But it's not just Royal Court stuff because it's still like the funny, gritty team full of creepos doing jobs that you get out of Blades in the Dark. Which I was a little bit surprised at first. Like I had backed the Kickstarter a while back, partially for research because I've got, Royal Court game in the works, as many of you may know. And so it's like Royal Court game, Forged in the Dark game. That checks 2 of my boxes. I don't need the rest of the pitch. So then when I sat down to read it, I was like a little surprised because the first thing I looked at was I feel like I've talked about this already, but I don't care. I'm pushing through because maybe I didn't. The first thing that I looked at was the actions, because that to me is like the easiest way for Forged in the Dark game to let you know what it's about. And I was surprised to see a lot of the like base Blades in the Dark ones are still there. And then I was like, hang on, maybe that's a good thing. And so I read the rest of the pitch and or not the rest of the pitch, the rest of the game. And learned that it's not just Royal Courts, you're actually lackeys of a big noble house. And so you're doing the dirty work for a noble house. So then it's like, oh, that's why we're doing a lot of the normal stuff. We're still skulking, we're still hunting. Of course, we're still command, consort, and sway, because I mean, you got a lot of weird nobles to lie to. But yeah, that's a good game. It did a thing that I would recommend everybody who's designing games do, which is there's like a little one-shot kit. So Jeremy, you know about Forged in the Dark games and how they have crews, and how if you do a one-shot of one of those games, it's kind of a pain in the ass because you don't want to neglect the crew mechanics because it's pretty central, but you don't want to spend 45 minutes creating a crew for a one-shot because that's ridiculous. What they've done is just provided like, here's the 6 houses, because instead of crews there's houses, and each one has different goals or whatever. Here's 6 houses completely already filled out, and then also here's a starting job for each of them so that you could just start playing. You don't have to be like, okay, we've made a crew and now we're going to sit here and dither for 45 minutes trying to figure out what this crew would do in a one shot. It's like, no, House Lavelle is throwing a party and it's for you, and you need to stop the assassin or stop the one house that isn't showing up from snubbing House Lavelle, or stop the rabble rousers from getting in. Your choice. It's pretty good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that has helped your own personal design?
Yes and no. So, like I said, the second time I played, it was to playtest the tactical storytelling engine,
Mm-hmm.
and it went well. The players liked it. The system did exactly what I wanted it to do, but I didn't. I didn't love it. I was like, okay, if this was ever gonna pop off exactly right, like this is it. But all I saw was like, yes, this worked exactly how I wanted it to, and that's it. I don't know. I kind of lost the spark to continue working on that. And so I'm going to stop. I think what I'm going to do is, like I said, it worked exactly how I wanted to. So I'm probably just going to release it onto itch as like a tech pack. Like, here, if you want to put a grid in your Forge in the Dark games, it's here for you. It might still need some tweaking. I don't know. That's up to you. But it's, you can have it. And you can use it. And you can let me know if it's good. But for me, it kind of went back to, like, it took my brain back to running, like, games like 5e and stuff where there's a lot of tasks for the GM to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely feel a lot better GMing a game where I don't have to touch the dice or any of that, because then I could just focus on the story and just focus on consequences. I don't have to switch my brain into, like, ooh, tactical mode, and then back out to, ooh, you got stabbed.
Ooh. Every time anyone from now on, you have to do the Adam Bell. Ooh, whenever you're switching mode of play. Entering everyone. Everyone roll initiative.
Ooh.
Ooh, all right, combat's over. No, so two things,
Mm-hmm.
three things I wrote down while you were talking
Great.
in reference to what you were talking about. One, you were talking about how the best way to look at a game, or to find out sort of what a game is about, is like its initial action thing, especially like Blade in the Dark stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading this article about like a session zero. I'm constantly learning, always refashioning my session zeros, slash session or group communication tools.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they brought up was look at what the game is asking a player to get invested in. And something I never really realized when I had played Blades in the Dark games, Forge in the Dark games prior is traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Get off.
think when you pitch the game, get off the table.
Come on. They're both doing it today, and I don't know why. Go ahead.
We're doing it live. Something I never thought about is that like the game wants you to get stressed out. It wants you to get hurt
Absolutely,
physically and mentally, and it's like it wants your character to get hurt physically and mentally. And I think when you do a session zero for like, hey, this game has a mechanic in it called traumas. If that's not something like we want to engage with or explore, or we need some additional safety tools around, um, let's talk about that, or not play this game, because you would there's a piece of it where like you would be doing the game a disservice, maybe not a disservice, but like, because you're not like beholden to a game structure, I
Right.
guess is not a great way to put it,
But
but
you're gonna miss out a little bit on what the game has. Well, I guess miss out is also not what I want to
yeah.
say. But like, you're gonna kind of like not exactly get the full experience that the game wants you to have.
Yeah.
If you're like understandably kind of cutting out a certain mechanic, and so maybe yeah, definitely having that talk at the beginning to either change it or switch to a game that doesn't have it. I don't know.
I guess I would say if you have like good game design chops and you're running anything, and you talk with your players like, hey, it's asking you to lean into this, and they say I don't want to lean into this, but I still want to play the system. And obviously you can change it, right? What can trauma be instead? Because I know that part of the pacing system of the game is the stress mechanic and the trauma and stuff like that. So reaches a finite point, right?
Court of Blades swapped trauma out for scandals. So every time you fill up your stress, you get a scandal, and people start talking. It's pretty good. It's pretty good change on that.
And you'll also miss that good XP. You're right. You're right, John. You're right. It's tied to trauma. You get more XP for playing into your traumas, which it asks you to do. So it's just something I never really thought about. And then the two other things when you were talking about like it has a one shot built into it. On this show we've talked about tutorials tons of times. Like what is the
Mhm.
onboarding process for a game? And there's also been like some Twitter conversations or Discord conversations lately that talk about like when you design a game and you're giving like an example session or how to put together like a try the game out session. Think about
Mhm.
conventions and how you have the tightest 2 hour window to like get your game off the ground and into play mode. Like how do you design all those rules and conventions to be parsable, because you don't have four people who are coming to the table who've read the book. You're like playtesting something, or like it's a game they've never experienced before, and I think it's behoovant to designers to think about like what is the smallest version of a session,
Mhm.
like how many scenes is that, like how do we get the most heightened experience out of this first initial play. Actually, I saw a tweet by Sean Tompkins, who is the writer for Ironsworn slash the soon coming out Starforged games, and uh, he had a tweet where I think he got a review, and the reviewer talked about how dense the book was. There's a lot of stuff in the Ironsworn book, but the actual game, like the game of Ironsworn, is maybe 50-ish pages,
Mhm.
all like super margined and single columned, and like um the rest of the book is like reference document. So like if you need a table, flip to the back, get the table. If you need to learn like a quick bit about a monster, flip to the monster. If you're in a specific region, flip to the region. Like none of it is needed to operate the game. A lot of like random tables do some of the heavy lifting for you. So um I find it interesting that, or I would find it, for me in my own designs, I would love to think more about like the tutorial session that you
Yeah.
can easily parse out and have like, I know that in Band of Blades they have beginning adventures or beginning scenes for when you pick your chosen, kind of like to set the tone for the rest of the game.
Mhm.
Uh, and I like that. I just wish it had a little bit more um, specific mechanic things, like how many clocks should this be, or like there are a couple, but it's like I just want a little bit more, like I can see behind the screen of the game, I think is what I'm asking for. Like as a GM, I want to see like behind the screen of the game. Tell me exactly like what's going on in this session or in this like tutorial adventure, so that I can then extract from that future sessions as I come to grips with a game, because I may also be learning a game for the first time as the GM, right?
Right.
Those are the three things that I thought about. Oh, you're solving a stream problem.
I'm also listening. I could do both.
Heard. Heard.
Not as well as I could do one or the other, but
Well, while you're doing that and parsing that information,
yeah.
uh, everyone in the chat, I don't know if I am choppy. Are we
No, so
both
last week, whenever I watched back, whenever I like downloaded the VOD to put on YouTube and the podcast feed, it was
Mm-hmm.
like pause. We were pausing. The audio was great, but we would pause like every 10 seconds, video
Oh,
wise,
heard.
and it was like annoying for me at least to watch. I don't know about everybody
Heard.
else.
Heard. Cool, cool, cool. As long as people can hear.
Yeah, the
Uh,
audio's fine. And you sound fine today from my end.
Thank you. Do I
Yeah.
not usually? You know
Well,
what I mean? Are you lying to me?
I'm switching the
Read in
latency
between the
mode,
lines.
which I think might help,
Um,
but makes the chat more delayed. I don't know if that'll help with this stream, but we'll figure this out. I don't need to do this
yeah.
live. Hopefully,
No.
it's okay for everybody.
Heard. Thank you. The audio's
Um,
fine. The video is just a little jumpy. Thank
oh,
you. Thank you, Kyle.
thank you.
And Dice Ghost.
Output.
And fictive fun. Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Uh,
Hi.
hi. Hello everyone for being here, especially some of our first time viewers. So
Yeah.
great. Uh, quick shout out, just because I really like Kyle's stuff. Kyle Latino does a YouTube channel called Map Crow, which has some really awesome, like, how to create a dungeon analysis, has really amazing art going on the channel. Um, Also has some really like good GM tips, dungeon design stuff, tons of things, and has like a really amazing uh I mean, from my perspective, like art centered Discord, but they talk about game design and RPG stuff as well. So please give Kyle a hello for coming in here and continue to make amazing stuff, Kyle. I've learned a lot watching your video.
Cool. I'll have to watch something like that. Some of that.
Yeah.
Something like that. What am I saying? I'll have to watch some of that. That sounds rad.
Watch some of that. Have you played this?
I have. So anyway, one thing that popped into my mind, as a brief aside, is that
Yeah.
you're talking about the convention 22-hour thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in a 10-minute thing, viewer,
Ooh.
stay tuned for the bonus show not this month. Wow, you're gonna have to wait a while for what I'm teasing. January 31st. If you want to hear 10-minute pitches. Ignore that. I'll tease that later. Time is fake. I thought for sure that was like real soon, but it's
The hot
fucking
seat, dude.
6 weeks from now. Yeah.
But yeah, so like tutorial adventure stuff, and yeah, I think it's important. I think tutorial onboarding in game design is wicked important, and I think a lot about how there's a lot of heavy lifting that GMs and players have to do when the obvious punch down is D&D, but like there's even some like OSR games that you need to have like a good brevity of like creative juice flowing to kind of like make those operate, because it's all very like player skill, like negotiation based stuff.
Right, which includes the
Um,
GM.
yeah, exactly. And I was reading, what was I reading? Index Card RPG. I think Index Card RPG has amazing like GM knowledge inside of it. I highly GMBT Tankstein has amazing like advice and like plug and play rules you can throw on top of other like, traditional adventure uh, games, and even probably some OSR concepts as well. But I highly recommend, if no one's picked it up, they actually just Runehammer, Hank I think is his name, just put out the Master Edition, which combines the first edition, the second edition, and a lot of supplemental materials all into like one cohesive book slash PDF ish. Yes. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Dice Ghost. I know that I've talked about this before for sure, about like video game tutorials and how they teach you how to operate all the buttons. Like I just love something that teaches someone the mechanics like in the first 30-ish minutes, and
Yeah.
then like also helps you run an adventure for the next hour and a half. I think it'd be fucking sick.
Yeah, I need to think about that kind of stuff because segue, huh? I'm working on, now that I've abandoned the grid, I went back to working on the sci-fi game that it sprouted from, which means I'm working on I'm not going to call it a trad game, but like a game with a GM that you would play a campaign of, which means, of course, that there's going to be more mechanics than usually I do, and then also I should create a tutorial like we're talking about. So how would you do that? Like, how do you do that?
Okay, wait.
Okay.
This is a fun theory craft. Let's use the world's only role playing game, D&D, because
Do we
it's
have
a
to?
good base. Yes, yes we do.
Do
Or I guess
we?
we could do Blades in the Dark maybe. I don't think the only reason I didn't go right to Blades in the Dark is because you know how I feel about the character sheets. They don't put some of the most important parts on the character sheet, and so there is no way for you to remember how to do the thing.
Which thing?
Like like resistance rolls are not on the character sheet. Flashbacks are not on the character sheet. Like, and if they're not on the character sheet and the person didn't read the book, when do they remember about them? The GM has to remind you, and the
Yeah.
GM needs like the reference documents and stuff. So it's just one of those things where like it has to be on the sheet. Is part of it.
It is
And then
on
also
the there is like a rules reference sheet that it's all on.
I know, but who's like flipping between multiple pages, dude?
I like to put rules. I mean, I don't know. You can only fit so much on a sheet.
I tried it for Dungeon World and I found it annoying to like flip between all the moves and then like character special moves and stuff like that. But I guess that might be just a me problem.
But like one, I mean, it's easier if you're playing in person, I would say, because then it's just all on your table, and you'd be like, "Hey."
That's true. Yeah, it's all out on the table. I guess
Like,
I am thinking sort of like as an online space sort of thing.
The online reference space is a mess for me personally. Like, we need to rethink all of that.
We need tool tips. We need pop-out windows. We need hover technology.
Easy and smooth zooming in and out. Huh?
Yeah. We're working on it. We're not working.
We're not working on it, but somebody should. Somebody should be.
Yeah.
Roll20 ain't cutting it for referencing rules. It's a Roll20, not Rule20. You know what I mean?
No, I'm a Roll app. Oh, Rule20. You're right. I see. We were in two different headspaces.
That's Roll, not Rule. Roll app. Anyway.
So I'm gonna use D&D just because it's the most familiar that I am. Like, it's like a race car I can pick up again and again. I can get into, and soup it up and change it as I need. But it's like one of those things like, okay, like you, some things that like conditions, right? Like conditions are things that are really talked about and then get put into oral, fucking oral tradition. Like they just get talked about and they don't really know what's going on there.
When you say conditions, that things like grappled,
but even more so like heavily obscured, right? Like,
excuse me,
being in darkness and not having dark vision, or being in darkness and having dark vision.
Invisible, petrified.
So I imagine like, making skill checks, making attack rolls and like dummies or some ish like that. I guess goblins. Like talking about action economy might even be worthwhile because it'd be easier if it was something that was like taught in the game or in an adventure. I think then players would be able to make more educated decisions about like how difficult something is in the game, right? Like they'd be like, "Oh, there are 20 goblins. Goblins are easy, but they get 20 turns, dude. Before you get your 5 turns, they could wreck you." So that's like something to consider. Something like, opening up or right. I like the work from backwards kind of beginning adventure. Like the team has already gone inside the dungeon and met little resistance, and now they have to get their loot out. They've already got the loot, like an in media res thing. So they kind of work backwards. All the traps are designed for when someone gets the treasure, and then people come in after. It's sort of like a almost like a meat grinder cave kind of situation. Like we let adventurers in, we don't let them out, sort of thing. Which also then teaches that the world is thinking about the adventurers, which is interesting. Especially if there are specific trap boxes designed for them. And we're doing things with like traps. We're talking about like active perception versus passive perception. You could have like adventurers walk into a room and check their characters and be like, "Oh, hey, John, your passive perception for your cleric is fucking 16. You notice these sets of like metal spikes that are in like these holes that are in the ceiling or something like that." It's like, "Oh wow, passive perception. I didn't know that was a thing." And then maybe someone wants to get into it. Cool, make me an investigation or perception check, right? Make their roll. This is the difference between active and passive settings in the game.
I rolled
then
a
we can
3.
talk. Huh? You rolled a 3? I don't see the holes that you're talking about. I'm gonna...
Whoa. I don't see
And just stuff like that, like just going over sort of like the major use mechanics of the game
it.
that are also, and when I say major use mechanics, I mean like turn order and initiative and action economy are used mechanics
Yeah.
that are not talked about. They're just sort
Action
of like, these are your resources, but it's more than that, right?
action economy. Action
E-bop-bop?
economy. Yep, make it up. Wow, I clipped a lot on that one. Sorry to the viewers. Action economy is definitely something that 5e just doesn't tell you about. You just have all these abilities that are like bonus action and free action and attack and move, and it's just like, if you had like, that is one thing that could be probably easily condensed into like a quarter page that everybody can have. And that during this tutorial adventure you just go, see, it's right there, right on the
Button is here.
hit it there. But instead it just feels like there's a lot of misunderstanding of all of that, even from me playing like as a player, where I'm just like, what, I just attack, right? That's all I can do. Whereas if it was like, hey, you could grab the guy.
It could be one of those things where like you fight on a bridge and like the orc is trying to grapple and push you off.
Yeah.
And then, oh, can I do the same to the orc? Right? It's like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What else? What else did I think about?
I mean, if you did like a really on rails for any game, we can zoom out of D&D, but just like a really on rails adventure, you could do something like this. That's like, basically, like you could even go so far as to say, okay, for the first like 10 minutes, like you're in character, but not like really. Like we can walk this back if it has an outcome that doesn't make sense for you. And then you just like,
right, yeah.
The GM has kind of a script, and then the player has kind of a script where it's like, do this thing, like say that you're resisting that.
Yeah.
Or it could say like, do an action roll, and then normally you would roll, but for this instance set your dice to a 1 and a 2. And then the next thing could be like, say that you resisted that, and then roll a die and take that much stress, -6.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, be like, do we want to pick up from here, or do we want to go back to the beginning of that, and then you can make the actions that you want to do.
Yeah. I think, that's good. Like, I forgot that you mentioned that. You did mention this before about how like it should be okay in like this tutorial adventure to like walk it back and retcon something, in that here's the example of like where you would fail in this or succeed or whatever, but go back, do you want to do it your own unique way and like go from the random outcome or something like that? Like just these kind of like pocket scenarios which I think is very very fascinating. And also thinking about it again, I think what that also says is like kind of fun at the table first. I mean, there'll be a total spectrum of opinions between like having fun at the table versus don't break my immersion, bro.
Come on.
Yeah, but it also puts into the space of like, hey, if you didn't have fun finding this like set of results out or like something like that, you can always walk it back, wrap conversation, like what that means for everyone at the table, how we come to a compromise in that space, and like just some facilitation tech that could also be worked into tutorial adventures, which I think is very fascinating.
Yeah, and the other thing you could do with that is like, if you're insisting that failures happen as a part of the tutorial, you can then also hand the GM like, here are the consequences that you should apply in this tutorial, and like try to show them that they can think really outside of the box with it. Like, you can do a failure doesn't necessarily mean oops, didn't happen. It might mean it happened but it shouldn't have. You shouldn't have done that. It might mean you tried to make it happen, but there's this whole other thing that was, you didn't notice, or like that you didn't consider. Or it might mean you did it, and then also it was magic locked, and you got zapped.
Yeah, Goofy, you get polymorphed into a sheep, dude. Uh, but something I didn't realize, like for Blades in the Dark is a perfect example, as a GM and how the game doesn't really like give you the like it has all those potential consequences, but doesn't really tell you how to like offload consequences. And my Blades in the Dark games ended up being wicked deadly because we play a very like long zoom in version of Blades in the Darks. Typically all my tables don't do like what John Harper intends the game to do, which is like 4 or 5 rolls and you should be done.
That's
It's
nuts.
like every minute action gets played out, and that's like a remnant of D&D stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But it wasn't until I read an article that was like, hey, you don't always have to give them harm. Think of the clocks also as help. And like, I was not good at like offloading consequence into the clocks and like changing the narrative in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would constantly be at like 5 stress and fucking have level 2 harms or shit like that. Because they just do all the wall crazy D&D stuff. And
Right.
it's like, and don't really like use their items, don't really use like their resistance rolls, don't use armor, right? Like which is a huge part of the game.
Yeah, they should be using all of that. But
That.
none of this tutorial adventure to show them what it means. And so then it's just like, I don't know what to do. Because there have been times where I, like, as somebody who has read Blades in the Dark and feels like I get it, there have been times where I hop into a game as a player and I start doing stuff like that, and it kind of like sparks a little bit more from my fellow players, where I'm like, hang on, I'm pretty sure there's one of these items that I can fucking lie to you and say that I'm using this way, and it definitely works that way, and then it does.
I feel it's the cat bag.
Or anytime I'm in a new group, I always try to do a flashback as soon as I can, just to remind people, like, we can and should think about the past.
In fact, you have to. It's not a heist game without the flashback.
Right. I actually bought the perfect item for this. I actually did. I saw ghosts coming. I knew it was going to happen.
I have a Demon Bane charm.
Yeah.
It's whatever. See, Framin says, like Dice Souls. I have not had the opportunity to deep dive into Dice Souls, and I'm going to assume yes. I did have an
I'm just waiting
interview
until
with
the whole thing's out.
about Dice Souls a little bit, but that was a while ago, and I'm sure there's more. That was the quick start. So I think you can retcon things because basically the game has you kind of like start over again because it's off of Dark Souls. So I'm making assumptions here.
You die.
And I've not played the solo trials in ICRPG. I've not played any ICRPG. It's mostly been like, ooh, I would love to like take some of these concepts. Like Umbral Dive is doing a lot with time in rounds and stuff like that, and ICRPG has a lot of like time manipulation tech. Like roll a d4 every d4 number rounds, these like shadows from the rafter come out and try to grab you or something like that, and you'd like do that on the spot, or you can also do it in prep. Blades can be a big book to like try to take in, just on Fictive Fun's comment. When I first read Blades, I was like, what? But I was coming off of D&D. There's part of that reason. And I'm a better game reader now than I was then. You can practice being a good reader.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about stuff right now.
Yeah.
There was an idea that I had yesterday for this sci-fi game, Project Axial Tilt. I don't have a name for it yet. I just have a project name. Which kind of relates back to your, like, you know, at the beginning of doing Blades, you didn't think about doing other consequences. It was just harm and stress and harm and stress. I was kind of thinking for Project Axial Tilt, which for the viewer who doesn't know, has currently like stats as health, essentially. And so like taking damage is losing stats, making your stats worse until later you go and recharge them. And one thing I was thinking of is like, instead of making GMs decide, oh, harm or consequence, what if I just made them do both? What if you fail a rule or get a mixed success, basically like the GM describes a consequence, has it play out in the fiction, and then also tells you which of the 4 categories of harm that there are in this game that it is. So like, oh yeah, you totally tried to lie to, this, the mayor. You tried to lie to the mayor, and it didn't, like, the mayor didn't buy it. The mayor sees right through you. People are trying to lie to this mayor every day of every week, and they're savvy to it now because you failed your role. So you don't get it. Like, the mayor is on to you and starts like rebutting you and pushing you on why are you lying to me? Tell me the truth. Tell me what you're here, why you're here, and what you want. You take one social harm. So you do both. Because I'm wondering if that can play into or play away from the inclination to just give harm as a consequence, because it's just the harm itself is a side effect of the actual consequence that then just gets mechanized onto your sheet.
Well, other games that I know that engage in stats as HP, one is Numenera / the Cipher System. You have might, speed. I don't know what the mind one was. It might be intellect, I'm not sure. But whenever you take damage, it goes to one of those 3 stats.
Mm-hmm.
So you essentially make up your health, and it ultimately it affects the roll of that stat as well. I think the other... So my vote is always towards, like, player-facing choices sort of things. There was one version of Umbral Dive where I let the players pick, like, where their resources were depleted in terms... Because I had a couple different health pools. I think you remember I had Grip and Guard.
Grip and Guard.
Grip and Guard, and basically each one had its own consequence and different depending on the class. So like, if your Guard was depleted all the way, you became vulnerable. If your Grip was depleted all the way, you became weakened, which like decreased your offense or decreased your defense, anti-respectively. Reverse respectively.
Wow.
And so that's one thing, is like you could do a version of GMing where you describe the effect, right? The cause of engaging with this, and be like, the mayor is mad and distrustful of you and does X, like rebuttals you, right? Then you could let the player potentially decide, like, oh, I want to take that in this because this is how I respond. Like, this is how I respond on the back foot. So, like, what is the character's response to the consequence? And that could be the damage. And that also depends, though, if you're using these stats for, like, I don't know, rollable systems, right? If they're in relation to dice rolls or card pulls or something like that. I think what it also prevents is, like, as long as there's a consequence for a 0 in a stat, I think it prevents people, like, offloading into a stat they don't like. So, like, let's imagine I have the 4 stats. My highest one is social. I want to keep my social high because I like my social rolls, but that means some other stat is low. And I choose to, like, put it in my, I don't know all the stats in your game, but might, right? And, like, oh, I'm weaker now, but I'm also closer to my 0 consequence. So it's this interesting push and pull of, like, well, at some point I'm going to have to make my social weaker, and what does that look like, right? Is it that I'm kind of, like, being an asshole today? Is it that, like, I have a grimace on my face, or I can't, like, I can't put on my customer service voice or something like that today, right?
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
Here, let me share the stat snippet so that I can better explain, because I think that your thoughts I think I agree with a lot of your thoughts, but also there's a little more that I haven't explained, which is let me know when you have the stream up. I
I
think.
see it.
Okay, great. So these are the four categories of stats: social, physical, experiential, and weird. The social stats. So the each category is also sets a difficulty for dice rolls. So your socials, like right now, I haven't figured out numbers yet. I've been trying to do dice math all morning, and
I feel it.
it's a struggle. But yeah, so we'll say right now, like your experiential is at difficulty 2. All the other ones are at difficulty 1. And then the dotted circles mean you don't have that. The filled in circles mean you have access to it. And then the not filled in but not dotted circles are things that you've lost. So this character, let's just only focus on social. And let's make the difficulty 2, because why not? Because that feels more real. So yeah, this character has difficulty 2 social, and then 2 in converse, 1 in listen, 1 in guide. Well, this is why I'm struggling with the dice math, is because this is hard to think about, actually. we're gonna say 2 in listen, and then 1 in guide because they lost 1. So if you were to take social harm, you could either increase your social difficulty. So fill this in. That's harm. And what that makes is every social rule that you do coming forward is 1 harder. Or you can decrease one of the stats.
Okay.
So like clear that out. And that one is player choice. If the GM tells you you're taking social harm, you either add to the difficulty or subtract from a stat. And the reason that's a different choice is because the difficulties, like whenever you have something that is difficult for a social reason, that does not mean you have to use a social stat. You can surmise, which is an experiential stat, in a social setting, right? So increasing your social difficulty might make a future surmise more difficult. But, maybe you just avoid social activity until you reset that and bring it back down to base.
So it's interesting, and I don't know if you've contextualized in this way, but it feels like the categories are external causes for difficulty, and then the actions are internal causes or contextuals for difficulty, right? Like
For sure,
if
yeah.
I take harm in my action, then it's a problem with me. Like the consequence relies on something I'm feeling inside or something that happens to me.
Yeah.
Whereas like you could then parse the category to be external and is like, physical difficulty goes up, and that is represented by like a rainstorm coming in. It makes scaling this thing harder or something, right? So like I would find it interesting that you write some rule tidbits in like that fashion as well, because I think that would translate to me the parsing of difficulty versus like dice I can roll, right? So if I take a damage in traverse, I sprained my ankle or my leg is broken because I only have 1. Like the closer it is to 0, the more severe the narrative context is, right? Could also be a way to phrase all of that.
Yeah. So like the back to that idea that I was thinking about is, and then I have things that you were saying made me think of yet another thing. So like if the GM is if the GM is imposing like a social consequence, should it just be that they tell you like that's social harm? Or funny other way. So that was my first idea, and then you started talking about like player choice and all that, which then made me think, well, there is player choice, but not quite in the way you're saying, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I explained the whole thing. The other thing that I'm thinking now is, what if we kind of remove harm a little bit more, and make it so like this could, taking harm in the way that I just described is like resisting consequence, like you do in Blades. So like, if I give you a social consequence, you can say, no, I don't want that, and to do that, I'm going to like take a social harm, like I just said. So like, I am avoiding this consequence,
by putting
But as
myself on the
such,
line.
yeah, as such, all future social rules are going to be harder. Or as such, like I'm going to feel a little bit weird about conversing for a little while.
Yeah. You have to tell C or something. I like that. I think that's a good angle as well. And
Yeah,
again, it's still that external versus internal
right.
sort of set.
All that stuff is still true. You just are actively choosing when to make this worse for yourself in the
Mm-hmm.
future by like
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing it for a result now, which makes the
Uh,
dice math easier for me also.
uh, Adam is our DYD local mathematician, one of three so far, with Clove and BLG also being a part of that club. If anyone else wants to be a DYD mathematician, show me that you can operate any dice at a capacity that is beyond output roll 3d6.
I
Because I
don't.
don't fucking get it, dude.
And if you can, so if we want to go a little bit into this dice math, if you are out there and listening and can tell me how to count doubles and triples of results in any dice, I would love to hear that instead of me having to do it manually. Because the dice mechanic is it's taking from my mechanic from Uneasy Lies the Head, which is your stats. So all these actions are going to give you the number of dice you roll, and then you can get extra dice from other mechanics that I haven't quite worked out
Mm-hmm.
yet. And then the difficulty chosen will be how many unique die faces you'll need. So if the
Mm-hmm.
difficulty is 2 and you're rolling 2 dice, you need 2 unique die faces.
So so what you're looking for is what is the probability that X amount of dice bring up unique face results?
Right. From like 1 to 6 probably. So on how likely is it, I can do the how likely is it for 6 dice to be 6 different results. I
Mm-hmm.
can't quite easily figure out how to do how likely is it for 6 dice rolled to have 3 faces.
Which is also interesting. So then if you have this is maybe the contextual of the dice math, wouldn't it then be how do you succeed? Is it that you need fewer dice faces or more dice?
More dice faces. You want more unique. So anytime a die is the same as another die, it's like it never existed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need
Sure.
unique results.
So then, doesn't that mean that having more dice is bad?
No, more dice is good because there's no penalty for getting doubles. It just like there's nothing wrong with getting 3 ones and a 2 if you're trying to get 2 unique die faces. It's a little sad because you could have had 4 on 4 dice, but more dice gives you like more opportunity to get different ones. If that makes sense.
Is it that so in that example you just gave me where it's 3 ones and a 2, do all the ones count as one unique face?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
There's something you
They
said
don't
that
cancel
made me
each other.
cool, cool. You said something along that lines, made me think. So then it's bad to have more dice. I would roll like 2 dice maximum all the time.
Right.
I would constantly take damage in my shit. uh, Interesting. That's cool. I like the unique face aspect. Well, maybe I for I'm maybe in like the last 5 minutes here. Uh, oh, BLG figured out your dice math in the chat.
Right. So like that branching path is where it starts to get complicated because I was trying to I'm trying to calculate it out for each. Here we go. Let's go back to the screen share. I'm pretty sure I have my. This is what this shows today. Sorry to the audio viewers, but
Yeah,
you'll
it's
be
dice
fine.
math day. So I'll read what BLG is saying for the podcasters who will come later. So BLG, who is Brandon Leon Gambetta, writer of Pasión de Pasiones, and is a prolific game designer, has stated, ooh, right, this one. So if you roll X dice, you'll get Y unique face results. That's an interesting little math problem. So the first dice is a success. The second dice has a five out of six chance of being a success. There's a way better way. Because third die, D3, has a 5 out of 6 chance of being a success if die 2 was a failure, but a 4 out of 6 if die 2 was a success.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for the people who are listening. If they also wanted to be like, what is the math for unique faces?
What is the math? So yeah, here's what I'm trying to make is I've got on the top number of outcomes for unique numbers, and then dice rolled, and then on the right side here I have total outcomes. So obviously one die you can never get 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So that's what all these blacked out are. One die, there's 6 different outcomes where you can roll a unique number, and there are 6. 6 total outcomes. So 100% chance you're going to succeed on a 1, or you're going to get 1 with 1 die. That's obvious. 2 dice, again, pretty easy. There are 6 unique outcomes, 1 through 6, where all the dice are the same, and then 30 where both dice are different. Easy. Down here is just calculating the percent based on the top table. 3 dice also was kind of easy because there are 6. Again, there's always 6 total outcomes for one face, and then again, like, it's pretty easy to get how many outcomes when they're all separate. So there's 60, there's 6, and then I was able to simply subtract to get 150. That falls apart when you get to 4 dice. Yeah, there's a lot. I know that much.
Whose brain is melting? It's not mine, but if anyone in chat, just throw up 2s if your brain is melting at dice.
So I think following BLG's thing and like what I was also thinking of to figure out 2 on 4, the first one is 1, 100% success on the first die. The second die, if we want to make it different, 5 out of 6. So we got a 6 out of 6, we've got a 5 out of 6, and then the next 2 have to be different from that. So I guess those are going to be, or no. So 6 out of 6 and then 1 out of 6. And then the next 2 are going to be 5 out of 6 because they have to just not be that first value. Or they can be that first value because 3 of them could be the same. And then 1 different. So I guess, oh boy. So the
100% chance my brain melts. I love
So the scenarios.
BLG says factorials could work here.
Yeah. Kind of. Yes. They definitely can. But also, it's hard. So the scenarios for 2 are 3 dice come up 1 number, the other die comes off the other number, or 2 dice come up 1 number, the other 2 come off the other 2. I think that helps me a little bit. BLG, if you figure this out, I could message me and I can share this document. You don't have
everyone to the DYD tower. BLG Adam, just continue the talk show with math. I love it. I'm here for it. This is prime time. If you're a podcast listener and you can't see this amazing work that Adam has done in this Google sheet, that's why you got to come to twitch.tv/AdamEBell and watch the VOD.
Didn't mean to share that. Let me get off of screen sharing because I'm allergic to doing it. Oh, sorry. This is a mess. Don't let me do live design. My scenes are all out of order, and it's kind of funny. Okay, so that's what's been on my mind.
Did what we talked about help?
Yes. Okay, great. Devin's in the chat. Hi, Devin. Thanks for joining. I think somebody else. Yeah, okay. Let me just catch up on the chat real quick. First time chat viewer, the Feisty Taco. Hey, hi, Michael. That's a friend of mine from when I lived in Wisconsin.
Oh.
Hi. Have only interacted online recently, not, for real, and it's nice. Have you ever played CK2? I assume Crusader Kings 2. Not a tabletop game, but they have some interesting ways of doing consequences. If you want to avoid a situation, you have to take on stress, which can lead to essentially unhealthy coping mechanisms. I have not played Crusader Kings 2. I've dabbled in Crusader Kings 3, but I do like that of, taking on stress, because I think there are that definitely opens up opportunities outside of the Forged in the Dark stress zone. Or like stress doesn't necessarily have to be something that fills up and then gives you a thing and then fills up and then gives you a thing. It could be something that just accumulates over time and then you start taking coping mechanisms. I don't know. That's something to think about.
Devin has a dice question conundrum. I'm working on a new game, rolling a bunch of D. How many D6s is too much to roll for one thing? My answer is it depends on the game design, and
Right.
I think that any amount of too many dices is one where failure is not, or scene tension is not an option. I shouldn't say failure. I shouldn't say that they always have an option to fail, especially if your game is like always about succeeding in different ways, like power fantasy stuff. But I think that it's when the too many dice is when it doesn't create an interesting result, right? So like if you rolled 4d20, took the highest for all of your skill checks, there's a really good chance you succeed most of the time in a pass-fail binary system. So like, why would you do that? 2 dice is fine because you can still get like some weird combos there. Or the flip side is also true. Like disadvantage is a really good chance you fail. I mean, probability, et cetera, percentages, blah 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 blah. But like in Blades in the Dark, I know that for the math of that game, once you get beyond 5d6, every like dice enhancing ability you could take has diminishing return because you're most generally guaranteed at least a 6 on 5d6 most of the time.
Well,
I mean, again, probability thing, but like the math of it works out to be that like you stand a really good chance of D6. Are you gonna roll 5d6 right now and see if you get a 6? I saw you mad at you.
I got a 6. It was guaranteed.
You heard it here. Jeremy Gage, mathematician. I'm giving myself the roll.
It happened again. Wow. The math is real.
Math is real.
Yeah, I would think how many d6s is too much. It really depends on what you're doing. So Devin followed up with it's a hit or miss thing. More misses is bad. So big pulls are risky. I think that's good because it already is self-limiting. As long as you're not summing the numbers,
That's also something to consider. Yeah,
summing the numbers, I think 3 or 4 is too many. Counting how many 6s you got versus how many 1s you got, however many dice you have, if you ask me. But also it comes into the stats for sure, like you were saying, Jeremy, where yeah, it's just how many until it's like not useful anymore to add.
Yeah.
So for something like that, I don't know. There's no hard and fast number, but I definitely think 10, 20, 40. I don't.
How many can you also like? How many can you hold in your hand? How many rolls do you have to make till you're right? I think there is something to say. Did you try to roll for 6?
Got another one.
I'm telling. It's like a 94% chance you're gonna get a 6 on 5 dice, and then every additional dice only changes it by like 1% or something like that. So it's not worth it.
I guess it is 5 out of. Well, I don't know what it is. I'm not gonna do the math.
John already did it. You can go look for the Reddit thing. Yeah, if it's just counting successes, then it depending on where your success at, right? So like if you're saying that every dice that's 4 and above, like a 50% chance on the D6, like we just talked about, 5 dice almost guarantees you a 6. So then how many more guarantees is that of 4 and 5, right? And if you're also using failure stuff, then I think the math is way different. Like if you're counting every dice that is a failure and like maybe it's canceling out successes or something, that the math on that is bonkers crazy. And then that I think that mostly determines around your target number. So like again, in that same example, if your dice are 50-50, 4, 5, 6 is success, 1, 2, 3 is failure, then like equal chance to cancel each other out on most rolls. I'm making that up, kind of. That's just what my gut is telling me. You have a pool. The core idea is that you have a pool of 7 dice, and you split it between active action and resistance. Then there are a bunch of bonuses you can add based on stats and abilities.
I think hovering around 7 for what you've described, I think that sounds great.
Yes, I agree.
Because it's super easy to be like, I'm looking at my 5 to 10 dice that I've rolled, and I can easily put the successes in this pile, the failures in that pile, and then count. That's a good number. What do we got? We've got some live. Jesus.
Let's see. This is my Shadowrun box. I've played Shadowrun one time at an FLGS. Worst gameplay experience of my life. It made me never want to go to an FLGS ever again.
Yeah, sometimes I'm thinking that might not have been an FLGS. A lot of times they're not.
Yeah.
They don't have that friendly. They didn't earn that friendly tag.
I'll say, if someone can remember and you want to ask that question for the Tabletop call-in show next week, feel free to ask and I'll talk about that story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And how I discovered that is when I truly wanted to be the forever GM, because I needed to show the world that there can be nice ones, nice and prepared ones. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I got.
My God, look at how many dice you're dealing with.
I'm just getting all out of. I think this is like a pack of 30. I got 7 6s. I don't know why I did that. I don't know what the purpose of rolling these.
Anyway, it is 12:07.
I think it's how many dice is too many dice. That's why I rolled these.
It is 12:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're in Standard Time right now, right? Yeah.
I just call it time zone. There's no standard. There's no daylight savings.
Yeah, fuck those railroad barons and whoever the hell gave us standard time. Destandardized time and abolish clocks. That's my statement for the week. I've been Adam Bell. I think we're wrapping up the show. Get my games at adamybell.games. Go to those the stuff I mentioned at the top of the show to donate some money to the disaster relief over in Malaysia and the Philippines, because climate change is a whole situation and it's gonna keep being bad, and we should help the people that are being affected by it today. Mm-hmm. Do that. Follow us on here, subscribe to us on here, especially if you've got Amazon Prime. You could do that at no cost to yourself. You could take a couple bucks out of Jeffrey's pocket and hand it to us.
Please.
And then
I
follow
want
us,
Jeffy's money.
Follow the show over on Twitter at Tabletop Call-In. Jeremy, why don't you say goodbye to the people?
ASMR version. I've been Jeremy Gage, and I want to thank you for coming to the Tabletop Call-In show. Please go donate to.
This is the worst.
Why is this bad? Do you not like this?
I don't.
You can find me at JeremyGage5 over on Twitter. You can listen to the Draw Your Dice pod. Did you increase my gain?
No, I didn't. I didn't touch it. It was, you were close to clipping the whole time, so I didn't need to.
Perfect ASMR. And please go donate. Anything, even $1 would be helpful to those in need, which is, something we should be thinking about. And if you do have the ability to Amazon gift sub us or whatever, give us Jeffy's money. I want all of Jeffy's money so that I can redirect it into helpful things.
Yeah, we'll eventually figure out how to do Twitch shit and add some fun emotes, maybe a weasel in the chat.
Yeah.
Eventually. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm taking us away. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. See you next week.
The show is over.